My brother. Kalamawi, brethren. In other words, greetings. I was sung in a while. It usually takes practice, and I really try not to do anything without practice. It's not a good thing. Brethren, a lot of it is always on my mind. Always. But and because there's always on my mind. At times when I will take it and play it over in so many different ways. I try to see, as all the different parts of the thing, all different points of views on the thing. Information period. Anything to do with analyzing a situation. Now, taking action in a situation is another. Right? It's also a different thing. But before you do anything, first of all, you have to recognize there's a problem. Next thing you gotta do is, okay, I got a problem. You have to define that problem. What it is. Define the problem, like, okay, what are the ways of dealing with this problem? Look at our alternatives. Look at the alternatives. You can't use all the alternatives. Right? You can't. You have to narrow down to a point where you select the most effective. And effective may mean that it works, but it may come at a cost. Right? So I find we look at all the alternatives, and some may not cost so much, but this will happen. But some will cost this amount, and that will happen. So you gotta say to yourself, how deep is my pocket? Right? At the end of the day, you have to look at it and see what is the impact of that solution, right? And why am I saying this? Because I'm going to take some time to set up the background of what I'm going to talk about here, and please bear with me because I am big on leaving an what is known as an attention getter. So it catches you, and then when it catches you, you want it to sustain you, and then when it sustains you, you realize, you know what, man, I want to hear more about that. That's right, so you can go and do your own stuff. So yesterday I was coming in from, I was in New Jersey all week this week. I was coming through my way of Philadelphia. So I came to the airport, getting ready to board my flight. I don't really have time. So I'm submitting some time in the computer. Look up, and there on the screen was breaking news. Shooting happening center in Colorado. And I think, here we go again. Alright. And then my mind started to do what it always does. Take the idea and it starts to, it takes me another direction, and before you think about it, my mind is in a maze. And it makes me think back to today. Do you know what today is?
Yes.
Okay, this is on that heads.
Oh. 1 year anniversary of the Sandy Hook.
Yeah. First anniversary of Sandy Hook shooting. And I mean, these things are serious and they're sensitive. I understand that. Some people don't want to talk about it, and that's fine. Right? Some people don't want it to be brought up. That's fine as well. But then you have to think. Because nobody wants to hear it. Should that mean I don't talk about it? Right? Then goes the whole idea of censorship again. Right? But I begin to think, and I'm thinking, how many of these are we going to have? And if I hate anything, man, I tell you this much. I hate this. And put me on record for this. I hate this. Lip service, and more lip service, and more lip service, because everybody has an opinion, and everybody has an idea, and everybody wants to talk about it, right? Because they got something to say. And no action happens. Right? In corporate, I work in corporate America, and a study has been done. Do you know where the most time is wasted? Corporate America. Meetings. A meeting about the meeting, about the meeting, about the meeting. And they get out of those meetings with no action items. Right? And then while we're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, we have mass shooting. Now, CNN has compiled a list of the 25 deadliest shootings in the US history since 1965. To present, since 1965. The 25 deadliest one, not just 25 alone. And now these numbers do not include if the perpetrator killed himself, right? They're not going to put that in there. We're talking about the victims now. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to just touch probably two most ones. In fact, I was involved in one, if you didn't know. I never talk about it, right? Well, there you go, there you go. The deadliest one that has recorded since 1965. April 16, 2007. Anyone remember Virginia Tech shootings? Virginia Tech. 32 people killed. The second highest was the one last year, which anniversary is today, 27 killed. In 1991, 23 was killed in Texas, where this guy driving to a cafeteria, crashed his truck and then 1984 in California, another guy coming with a Uzi bomb rifle, 21 killed. Now McDonald's. I'm not going to go any further, really not. But when I was at Northern Illinois University, did my master's program February 14th, 2008. We labeled it the second Valentine's Day massacre after Al Capone's one. I was there. Everyone night check came into the cold hall and decided he was going to empty all that he has in an amphitheater style classroom. It was rough. It was rough, man. 5 people died. And my wife was worried about me. Couldn't get in touch with me. It was tough. And this day, still lives with me. So when things like this come around again, it brings back a lot of memories. But
Cornell, where was this?
NIU, NIU University. Oh, they're in the cap. Remember, right?
Yes.
But I'm not much lighter note though. Sorry. Not much lighter note. So the story is told about an old lady who was in her kitchen of her house, right? And she didn't know it, but her house was being burglarized. So as the crook was trying to get away, she came in to the kitchen and he was standing right there. He got a whole boatload of her items that she didn't know that somebody was stealing. And the only thing she could do at a point in time was just yell out. Acts 2:38. She thought, self-repentance. and all that. When you think about it, somebody's gonna quote Acts 2:38 at the moment. You know, all things he could do. But the bird froze. For some reason it didn't move. So she just slipped through the slide in that moment, slipped through the slide and just called 911, and before you know it, the cops were there. And they were shocked to see her, you know, putting this guy into a hold. So they say, I mean, how did you do this? Well, she says, well, all I did was just quote a scripture. And the brother said, scripture? Scripture? And he said, I thought she had an accent 238. No, this is news to him. He's like, man, I'm up against this old lady, an axe and 238. But for whatever reason, you know, it left a mark, right? For the guy. And then that takes me to the idea, you know, like I said, I left that statistics right there. Must leave an impression because I'm taking this somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, gods have been in the news a lot. And almost everybody, like I said, have an opinion about it. And the POTUS, the acronym for the President of the United States, announced a series of gun control regulations. So try to encourage Congress to act on them. And also authorize himself 23 executive orders, which, by the way, give him the power to do certain things, to mandate certain things, right? Because of office. And many people have different mixed reaction about that, whether a man should have so much power, right? Like I said, I'm not going to give my opinion now, right? The opinions get you in trouble. But either way, with that, he wants to institute strong background checks that would entail expanded checks as well. And to mandate certain things about weapons, you know, to kind of prevent certain loopholes in getting certain, prevent certain kind of weapons from getting in the hands of criminals, right? Some people are excited about it, some people are not. But then that takes in not only now to gun control, but bullet control. Two different things. Which the idea here is you don't want anyone to be able to buy a magazine that holds certain number of rounds in there. 21 killed. Remember Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, all those. Remember NIU, all these ones that we're talking about here. High capacity weapons. But while this is happening, baby, everyone, John Public, like I said, has many opinions. Opinionated. In action. And it doesn't take you much to see how much the society is really divided at this thing. And it takes me back to the quote that says, Nero fiddles while Rome burns. You know, to the point where you have a situation where the public is divided at the Second Amendment. Second Amendment, right? The Bill of Rights, it says here, a regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what the United States Constitution, Second Amendment, says, which is, don't take this wrong way, which is your Constitution, because I'm not a United States citizen, right? I could say our Constitution, but I would be technically lying, right? So the issue is, where do you stand on the issue? Not an answer, not asking for an answer, but the next thing is, do we really have the right to bear arms? But the Constitution, yes, says you can based on that. If you look at it in the mere letter of the Constitution, technically yes. But like I said, I'm not a United States citizen, so it doesn't apply to me. So I can't say, do I have to, do we have the right to bear arms? But before you answer that though, think for a moment. Think. And think here meaning, is it true? T. Is it helpful? H. Is it inspiring? I. Is it necessary? N. And is it kind? K. Think about it carefully before you respond to yourself. Do you have the right to bear arms? Even those techniques, even those PHIK techniques. But think about it though. What I would say, my advice to you though would be this. It depends. It depends. Why am I saying this? What if we look at this more from a spiritual perspective? Because that's what we know, right? The spiritual side of things, not the temporal. The physical side is physically. But think about it from the spiritual side now. And this is where, with that backdrop that I said, keep that picture there. But now, take that picture and put it in another atmosphere. Physical, spiritual. See where I'm going? And then think, over here, the physical constitution says you have the right to bear arms. Over here, the spiritual realm, our constitution now becomes what? Our constitution now becomes what? Right? The constitution now becomes the Bible. So the question is, what does this constitution? Then I can say we. Right? So over here I have no opinion. Over here, I have no opinion, because like I said, I'm not the United States citizen. So ask me about your opinion on your guns, I can't give you one. I can't. Who are you? Why are you? We're going to talk about stuff you don't know about. Right? So you're not going to get me on that hook. Alright? So we're not going to have the conversation. But over here, let's have the conversation. Do we have a right to bear arms? Follow me. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 10:3. Now, this is not about the Acts now, the 2:38, right? This is not physical now, this is spiritual. Let's see what Paul says here. 2 Corinthians 10:3. And I really want to drive this point home, so I'm going to stick to script. 2 Corinthians 10:3 says, we walk, in fact, read all the way from 1 through 6, but I'm going to pick it up at verse 3 here. Alright? So we walk in the flesh, yet we do not war according to the flesh. He says, weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Remember over here, physical. Over here, spiritual. Two different, I'm going to call it labs. Two different labs that are in, right? So, technically, we have a right to bear arms, I guess. Maybe. Because if you're in a warfare, we got to have weapons. Whatever those weapons are, we got to have weapons. And if we look at this here, he's not talking about physical things. He's not talking about physical things. He specifically said not carnal. He goes on, he says, mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, in every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. That is the effect or the impact of using those spiritual tools then, our arms, if you will, to achieve with purpose, in contrast to what happens over here. No purpose. 37 dead, 21 dead. Gruesome. This is what I said. Take it and run it through that machine. Okay? And let it be spiritual over here. And then flip that on his head. The end, the impact, the means, the method. So, when we talk about the gun control issue then, next time we talk about the gun control issue, maybe we should take a back and think about it in the spiritual perspective. What am I saying? So if you don't want to talk about it at all, if you don't want to have no opinion about it, when somebody comes to you and you want to talk about, oh, what are your thoughts on guns? Right? Maybe you should just step back and think. Which I said, it depends. Do you have read to be ups? It depends. What lens are you looking through? We watch movies all the time, and Ali is an avid movie lover. I know that, right? But if you notice, and I'm a sports fanatic. I live, breathe it because I was an athlete. But there's nothing better than being in the stadium. I mean, I'm telling you there's nothing like being in the stadium. Somebody will say, oh, we're going to pay money to go there. You really don't know. You really don't know. Okay? This is like the guy who's paying the money to go there. It's not your money he was burning. Okay? So you might say, okay, I'm going to stay home and watch the game. I'm going to say the Super Bowl on your TV. Because guess what, you can see all the different angles of what's going on. As opposed to that guy who is in the stadium, he's seeing like one angle. Right? What am I saying? Next time somebody talks to you about the gun control issue, it depends on what lens are you looking through to respond to that. Right? The angle that Deacon R, where is he sitting at right now, does not see the same thing that Sister Nancy is sitting at, that Sister Denise is sitting at. Everybody here right now, at the position that they're sitting in, see a different picture of me. Yes or no? Right? What am I saying? Which means if I say to you, if I read something here right now, or tell you something here right now, and ask you to respond, and ask you to respond, and ask you to respond, chances are, everybody might give me a slightly different response. A slightly different response. Why? By virtue of your point of view. Hence, all this bickering, all this lip service, and Rome burns while Nero fails. Look at it, the gun control issue in a spiritual perspective. Brethren, Paul says, yes, we are in a war. We are in a battle. There are weapons here that we should be taking with us. So if we go back in verse 3, in fact, I think the Phillips translation of the Bible, the Phillips translation of the Bible, basically says this about verse 4. It says this: the very weapons that we use are not those of human warfare. That's how the Phillips translation reads that. But powerful in God's warfare for the destruction of the enemy's stronghold. So, brethren, our battle is to bring down every deceptive fantasy, every imposing defense that mankind erect against the knowledge of God. We got weapons. So we have a right to bear arms. Spiritually, that is. We have a right to bear arms. Spiritually. Because we're in a real battle. So if I ask a question again, then you'll be in a position to answer it then. Right? Okay, that's established. But let's look at some instances in the Bible. The reason why I established that is because I want to go back in Scripture, back in the Old Testament, to use some of these things that we have read. And they're all nice stories, some of them are gruesome. Okay? And people say, how can your loving God be so bloody? Okay, let's go back. And like I said, I want to take that gruesome picture in this physical lab and get some spiritual lesson over here. So many times through in the Bible, we see examples of the right to bear arms. Yeah, there are not many circumstances that I'm sure maybe Paul was maybe alluding to in a sense when he wrote that statement. He probably understand that physical side of it to really use that terminology in the spiritual side of things. But we have a great example. In fact, before I go there, in the Old Testament, there was a certain individual that had certain special responsibilities, especially when you have to do with battles. And you're going to figure out who this individual is. This individual had specific responsibilities, like I said, to specific duties. And he would walk around with the king's tools. His armor, maybe his sword, and something else. These days we call them personal assistants. Or whatever. That person who, the king is walking and he's about to stumble and somebody's right there too. Right? That person, ladies and gentlemen, was called the armor bearer. The armor bearer. And Abimelech had one, Joab had one, Jonathan had one. David was one. King Saul. And then not only that, even the giant Goliath had one. Remember? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm beginning to think about it now. Because Goliath was a giant. He's that strong. Which I'm thinking, how big was his shield? Which I'm thinking, how big was his sword? If he's a giant, maybe his armor bearer was equally a giant for him to carry the stuff. Or strong enough to carry all these things for Goliath. My mind goes from time to time, so please bear with me. Because it's reality. I don't look at it through the superficial things. If you talk to me about superficial stuff, I can't tell you. Because I have not been there, I have not experienced it, so I have no opinion. But I can tell you this much, I'm human. And I've experienced things. And based on my experience, I can make an inference about something. So, chances are, I didn't say the Bible say this. Chances are that the armor bearer for Goliath might not be a giant as well. Or strong enough. Where am I going with this? Here's a great example. Actually, the word that is originally translated armor bearer is the word nasa, which, and Pastor can verify that's for me, is the word nasa, N-A-S-A, which figuratively means support, to support. So the armor bearer was a support. Means to help or hold up or lift up. So the armor bearer technically would lift up things that his master would need, or hold up things that the master would need, or support the master with what he needs. So if you go to Judges, for example, Judges 99 and verse 50, it gives us a situation that I think we can get some spiritual lessons from. If you go to 99 and verse 50, it's a story of Abimelech. So you can read it all the way, through, but maybe around verse 42 to about 57 could give you the background here. But I'm going to zero in on 50. So let me give you a little background. King Abimelech. At this time, he wasn't king of Israel yet. He wasn't king of Israel at this time. Eventually he did, somewhere down the line, and because he was trying to rule over Manasseh. So what was his claim to fame? What do we know about him? He was Gideon's son. Was Gideon's son? Remember who Gideon was? The guy who used the water to send some guy home. To say, hey, look, we got enough to go and take these guys home. Gideon, good man. But in contrast, his son, he was a tyrant. He was a nut. He was a nut. He wanted rulership for himself. He got this power struggle issue going on. So the situation came in chapter 9 here, where you see him trying to fight for power. He's fighting the same enemies that the Israel have been fighting for a long time. And in verse 50 here, give you the insight. He says here, Abimelech went to Thebez, and he camped against Thebez, and he took it. He conquered it. In verse 51, there was a strong tower in the city, and all the men and the women and all the people of the city fled there. So they are fleeing. So he's trying to take the people by force, in power, right here. He's in war. So he kind of cornered them, and they have nowhere to go. He says all the people fled, and they shut themselves in, and then they went to the top of the tower. No, just picture that. They are backed up in the corner. They went to the top of the tower. And I guess everybody is left there. And you anticipate, what's going to happen. Verse 52 says, you see, Abimelech comes and he came as far as the tower, fought against it. He drew near to the door of the tower to burn it with fire. So he backed these people up in the corner. I'm going to touch them. Then in verse 23, all of a sudden, a certain woman dropped a millstone on his head and crushed his skull. Okay. Fatal wound. He knew he was going to die. So what does he do in verse 54? He calls quickly to the young man. The young man, who was the young man? His armor bearer. He called his armor bearer. And he says, draw your sword, kill me, lest men say of me, a woman killed him. It was a disgrace for it to hit the 3 o'clock news, saying, hey, a woman killed Abimelech. Disgraceful, unheard of. No. 54, so this young man thrust him through and he died. And you're saying, why am I looking at this armor bearer issue and why it's so important? We can take a lesson from it. Right? Where was he? He was right there with the king. He was right there with Abimelech. Okay, I'm not saying king, he wasn't king at the time. But he was right there. Look, they were chasing these people. They were fighting. They took the city. They dragged them out of the tower. All of this is happening. All of this is happening. He was every step of the way. He was there. And I think it's a lesson for us all. Who is our king? Who is our king? Right. Now the question is, are we that armor bearer? Are we the armor bearer? Are we right there? Every step of the way. Tita-tata, tita-tata, tita-tata. I don't care what's going on. Tita-tata. Remember Peter? When the cock crows? Peter wasn't there. Wasn't there. And when we realized the third time, oh, I remember. Oh, man, I can't believe this happened. And I tell this man, I'm gonna, and look what I did. He was not there. The armor bearer was always there, brethren. I think it's a lesson for us. That every step of the way, we got to be there for our master. Because our master required it. The armor bearer's job, as tough as it was to be right there, even in the heat of battle. No matter how, when things aren't going right, you're there. The cupbearer, was Joseph a cupbearer? I can't remember. Was he a cupbearer? Joseph.
Cupbearer.
He was. You see, all these things, you read through Bible, scripture, and you wonder, cupbearer? What is the important job? It's a very, very important job to the person who he is serving. Right? These days, the guy who clean the garbage and the janitor don't get the same respect usually. Don't get the same respect. And it's sad. It's sad. But your job is important. So when we are going through childbearing difficulties, we can draw from that lesson right there, from that cupbearer, from the armor bearer. Rule number 1, be there because your master requires you to be there. Now, I'm thinking then, what would the armor bearer have in mind when he do this? When he literally, because remember, he has to take the sword now and kill Abimelech. His master asked him to take the sword and kill him. And I'm thinking, the armor bearer is what I know I may should do this. I might know that in the long run, at some point I may have to do this, but no, it becomes reality. How do I take my sword and go kill my master of so many years? Because he asked me to do it. And I'm thinking, why? It's honor. It's honor. And that's not something I want to use it. The Western part of the word understands. Honor. It's about, now when we shake hands, it's like, hi, how are you? Back in the day, when you spit in the hand and shake somebody's hand with blood or something like that, it's a deal. Okay? No, I see you. Hi, Tony, how are you doing? Right? I tell you about the family name, how it's important back home. Don't mess with the family name. Honor. Those things are important. So when somebody calls me outside of my name, he ain't having it. Because that's not me. Number one, I'm not answering. Even if you mistakenly call me. That's not my name. Okay? Same thing here. So, act here, I believe, I'm just thinking, is lesson number 2. So the king had to be honored And one of the biggest concern of the Bear was that if he don't do it, he's going to dishonor his king. So even though he's a kingman, he has to do it. We are called, as a part of our calling, brethren, to honor the Almighty with our service, obedience. I mean, you talk about, I like the poem or the obituary that you read. It sticks right back here. Who gonna do it? Who's gonna? You the matrix, you know? Someone else. I'm a bearer. I have no choice. His responsibility. And it comes back to mine again. Yeshua was put in the same position. Let's go to Mark 6. Mark 6, 4, and I think it's bring home the point. In a slightly different way. Now remember, the armor bearer trying to bring honor to his king by thrusting him with the sword. Can bring some from like Mark 6 and verse 4. Because of this section of scripture, we just give some insight into the specific event. We're not giving, it doesn't give us a lot, right? But Yeshua himself talks about how honor plays a very important role in society. So we see where he goes from Mark 6, verse 1. I can read it all the way down to 6. Yeah, until about verse 6. But I'm going to pick it up in verse 3. He goes home, his hometown, and in this story, he says, verse 3, isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary? Aren't his sisters here with us? They were offended at him. They were offended at Yeshua. Because they were only able to see things only at the physical level, not the spiritual level. And Yeshua responded to them, a prophet is without honor, except in his own country, among his own relatives, and in his own house. Everybody else know about me out there, and respect me and honor me. And I don't get the same respect here. And you expect me to do what? The importance of honor. The importance of honor. It is important. I think Sister Nancy and I had this conversation at some point. In certain cultures around the world, which is why sociology is important, people. It's important. I don't care what you think. I'm saying right now, I don't care what you think. Sociology is important. Understanding culture is important before you do certain things. You can offend people. You can be stoned. And then you say, oh, those people uncivilized. Really? You must know a little thing, man, about something before you do it. Ignorance is no excuse for, you know what I mean? In this part of the world, when I do this, to you understand what this means instantly, right? Go to Japan and do it. Okay, go to Japan and do this. Thumbs up, you think. Now, I'm not going to say what it means. Okay? Certain parts of Saudi Arabia, they go, Sister Nancy, I like your shoes. No, it's a compliment. You understand? It's really a compliment. Certain parts of Saudi Arabia, it's like an obligation for that person to give you the shoe. That's my point. Social is important. So when Yeshua is talking about honor here, I'm not thinking no superficial nothing. Because like I said, I don't know what superficial is. I heard of it. I've never been there. I can't experience it. But I live a life, a normal life. I meet people every day. I work with people of many different class, color, creed, backgrounds. And I have to understand the people who work beside me because we are on the same team to achieve a goal. Right? A goal. Important here. So I understand exactly what Anna is right here. Yashua is pointing out the fact that his own people, who basically could call his homies, actually, they discounted him. They discounted him. That's dishonor. And because of their dishonor in verse 5, he could do no mighty work there. Maybe he wanted to do some great things for his stuff like. Let's think about Derrick Rose, for example. You all know his story. Make big in the NBA, $95 million contract guy. Right? Decided to move with his hood. Some people say, I want to keep it real. Yeah, keep it real stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you don't do something now, you hear, oh, man, I was Derrick and so and so. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he wants to do some work in his community, but he might not even get the same respect. Because he don't get the respect there. Everybody else knows about Derrick somewhere else. You know, all the impact that he did and really, you know. I know this because Bob Marley came from my country. And it's amazing the way people react when I say I'm from Jamaica. Everything, all the conversations in a different direction. Mm-hmm. Oh man, Bob Marley! No, they never even hear about Marley song yet. Mm-hmm. But he's well known abroad. There are days here. There are stars and Hollywood and all their parts and all this stuff here for. In fact, in France, someone was using his name to sell a particular substance, illegal, which Jamaica is the maker for that, which is illegal, but somebody else really benefit of using the name of Son of Soil to promote it. Honor elsewhere and at home. When they go home, Bob Marley, oh yeah, Bob Marley. But the guy in the music industry understand who that was and the impact. Right? I hear Rihanna, all these young kids artists now talking about Bob Marley. I'm like, oh nice though, that's good. That's good. That's good. Honor is important. I'm belaboring this topic, but sorry. And here's the reason why it's important. The preaching of the gospel can be impacted because of that dishonor. You don't get to reach the people who you need to reach, who really need to hear from you, because it's Ray Curtis, it's Deacon Al, it's Al Nelson. You know, who is he? You know what I mean? Oh, you will grow up on the corner right there. So you know, you don't want to hear nothing from Al Nelson. You don't want to hear nothing from Ray Curtis, because it wasn't he from he's a preacher, son. He's a preacher. Mark 6:4 and 5. He can impact the gospel. And who wins in that process? The devil wins in that process. The devil gets the leeway. He wants to bring on this other and try to impact a good stuff. Try to get his little way in. In fact, that's all he exists for anyway. To mess something up that is good. You don't really have to be the one to really do it now. But just a segue, just to wobble the ship a little bit. That's all. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be off course, but just wobble the ship a little bit. You know. dishonor. So, ladies and gentlemen, take it from me. The fact that the armor bearer had to thrust Abimelech with the sword, it's all about honor, that he would dishonor his master. We don't want to bring the same disgrace to our Almighty. So let us try to do what we can do, right, to honor. I think Paul kind of have this in mind as well. Go over to 1 Timothy 1 and verse 17. I think Paul had this in mind because he references whole concept when you write to Timothy. 17, 18, 19, those are the three verses I will look at. But he says here, verse 17, to the King eternal, immortal, invisible, to God alone who is wise, the honor and glory forever and ever. Amen. We can always say God is honorable and He's awesome, and we all know that. We know that. You know, He's great, He's all-knowing and everything, omniscient, powerful, all that. We know that, those are given. But the point here, that I think Paul is zeroing on, brethren, is this part that extends to us all, what this honor means. Verse 18 says, this charge, he's charging Timothy now, this charge I commit to you, son Timothy, according to the prophecies previously made concerning of you, that by them you may wage the good warfare, having faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected. He takes it back again to the whole concept of warfare. Now he takes it back to the purpose of bearing arms for those warfare. Oh, for that end, the impact, the honor, the glory of God. These things, rather, they sit right in front of our faces. So we look at them many different ways. But yeah, they are profound. I think they are profound. Here's another example. Going back to the Old Testament now. And this is a slightly different twist to the arm bearer story of Abimelech. Somewhat slightly different. So let's go back. And we're looking at this arm bearer that belonged to Saul. 1 Samuel 31 tells a story. 1 Samuel chapter 31. This is toward the end of Saul's life. But in there, you know, if you remember, Saul was the king of Israel, and he's a guy who liked to take matters in his own hands. Literally speaking, he's a rogue kind of a leader, no nonsense guy. You know, man, I pray to the man upstairs, but I can't wait on it. You know, let me go do my stuff over here. You know, I remember the witch Endor. You know, he decided to do his own stuff. So man, I can't wait on this man right here. He was a mess. Okay, he was a unreal mess. You can put those two words in a sentence. But he comes to the point where he was fighting the Philistines here. 1 through about 13. 1 Samuel 31, verse 1 to about 13. Like I said, I'm not going to read there. I want to read everything in English time. But I want to drive home the point of the armor bearer. And verse 1, now the Philistines fought against Israel. The men of Israel fled from before the Philistines because they were gaining ground. And he fell and fell and slain on Mount Gilboa. Then the Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons. Eventually they killed them. They killed Jonathan. They killed all the other sons as well. Then in verse 3 now, the battle becomes fierce against Saul. The archers hit him. He was severely wounded by the archers. And then in the old familiar story of Abimelech, what happened? Paul said to his armor in verse 4, "Draw your sword, thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and abuse me." So you get a picture here. Back in the day, if the leader of the pack get backed in the corner and everything is on the line, chances are he's going to take his life into his own hands or allow his right-hand man to do the job for him. Right? I always think about, for example, when Saddam Hussein was on the run, and I'm thinking, oh, probably they won't find this guy alive. But they won't find Bin Laden alive. You know what I mean? Because honor means a lot to, when you understand the culture, honor means a lot to these stuff. You know, maybe they get back up in a corner and then, okay, take me out. You know what I mean? Because no, I'm not going to be dragged into court and do all this stuff, and, right? I think about all this stuff because of this same kind of knowledge here. Is that part of the world, you know? Is that part of the world? As I said, Western education have I think it's suffered amnesia from understanding cultures. And, you know, to get the true picture of certain things. He didn't want him to abuse him. And this sounds familiar, like I said, but the difference with this one, I think, here, this armor bearer was afraid. This armor bearer was afraid. He didn't want to do it. And I'm thinking, you're an armor bearer, you're a second guy, and you are weak in the knees. You've been through battles, so many, and you're weak in the knees. Wow. To do what the master just asked you to do. It's not one fight they've been through. They've been through many. I mean, the Bible don't tell you if he had changed armor bearers. We don't know that, right? There's a lot of stuff we don't know. But I'm going to ask you, if this was the same armor bearer for as long as you can remember, right? Because the person who is in your inner circle, the person who are in your inner circle is not anybody. Okay, they are vetted. They are people who you trust. You see, when the portals goes out, because the Secret Service got to do their thing. Nobody can get within certain distance. You know, when we went to Mandela's funeral the other day, and you hear the story of the interpreter, right? Saying that be based on persons who are what's that? Orally impaired? Orally impaired. Orally impaired. They're saying that what he was signing makes no sense. And who better to make an opinion than persons who do that thing? Because I don't speak. So I don't know if the guy out there was really signing. I don't know. So now you come and ask an opinion. I can't give an opinion because I do not know what the guy was signing. So don't ask me, ignorant person, to give an opinion on something that I know absolutely nothing about. So the persons who are, who do this thing, who would communicate with each other, they're in a better position to say, yeah, he wasn't saying anything really. Right? But that's one thing. But the bigger thing is the security impact. The security impact. You got the portals right there. You got all these people from over the world right there. These things are important. So we see where this Abba bear was weak in the knees, basically, because can't do that. But let's look at what afraid is here, though. I don't think, though, he was afraid in the sense that, oh man, I can't do this. Ooh, I can't do this. But Pastor, verify this. H3372. H3372. In verse, verse is this? Afraid. Verse 4. It means, instead of shaking his boot, it means something reverence, awe, and respect. The kind of fear that you're supposed to have for the Almighty. H3327, Yahweh or Yer, I'm not going to pronounce it, I don't speak Hebrew. But a verb meaning to fear, to respect, to reverence, to be afraid, to be awesome, to be feared, to make afraid, to frighten. Most common translation are to be afraid, to fear God. So the fear right there probably wasn't so much that I'm scared to do it, but it's in a moment of, oh, I get to do this. I get to honor my master one last time. One last time. In other words, done to the death. Are we able to do that? Are we able to honor our master done to the death? The last one drop. Remember now, Peter, done to the death. Peter wasn't there. Peter was not there, done to the death. And it got Peter so upset that when he got caught himself, he didn't want to die the same way his master died. It would be a dishonor to his master to be crucified right side up. Just say, look, no, frick me. Frick me, because I'm not worthy. Especially knowing that I did what I did. And we know that the Philistines were known for their abuse. If you look at verse 7 through 12, after they killed Saul, what they did with him. They took him apart and the head and they staged it all over the place as a fanfare. I can imagine, oh, we caught him. You know, and floor parade down Michigan Avenue. This guy has been a tyrant for them for years. Seriously, this is why I know. When I read this Bible, I try to put some color in there. Because this was real life. It was real life. And if you're telling me the story, I don't hear your side of it. But if I immerse myself into the story as a human being, it's colorful.